This was the greatest military victory in Vietnam's Indochina War, 1945 to 1954. With this decisive victory, the People's Army of Vietnam, commanded by General Vo Nguyen Giap, forced the French and National Army of Vietnam at Dien Bien Phu to surrender on May 7, 1954, after 2 months of resistance. 12. During this battle, the French forces increased to 16,200 men but still could not withstand the overwhelming attacks of the People's Army of Vietnam. 13. The French colonialists were unable to pacify Vietnam despite many years of fighting and with the increasing support and involvement of the United States. 13. France no longer had any capacity to continue fighting in Vietnam after this defeat. 14. Internationally, this campaign was of great significance and went down in human history, because it was the first time the army of a former colony in Asia defeated the modern and sophisticated army of a European power, supported by its ally the United States, in a major military operation, considered a sudden disaster for French colonialism and a major blow to the Western world. 12. It defeated France's will to maintain its Indochina colony and forced it to negotiate. 12. And withdraw its troops from Indochina. With the confidence strongly boosted by this victory, French colonies in Africa also rose up in protest demanding independence. In 1960 alone, 17 African countries gained independence, and by 1967, France was forced to grant independence to most of its former colonies. Thus, the victory of the Vietnam People's Army in the Dien Bien Phu Campaign is also seen as a milestone, marking the complete failure of France in its efforts to rebuild its Indochina colony in particular and its colonial empire in general. Upon discovering the large force of the People's Army of Vietnam advancing toward the Dien Bien Phu Basin, de Castries continuously deployed forces to relieve the hills. According to journalist Bernard Fall, from December 6, 1953 to March 13, 1954, de Castries mobilized half of the garrison's forces in relief operations. According to the latest reports from Dien Bien Phu, the losses of the garrison from November 20 to February 15 totaled 32 officers, 96 non-commissioned officers and 836 soldiers, equivalent to 10% of the officers and non-commissioned officers and 8% of the soldiers in the valley. In other words, the French losses were equivalent to 1 infantry battalion, but the number of officers was that of 2 battalions. This total does not include the losses of units in Operation Pollux. 37. Navarre wrote in his memoirs, during this time, Colonel Castries conducted intense exploratory battles around Dien Bien Phu. Everywhere, the French encountered strong and well-defended enemy units. We suffered quite heavy losses. It was clear that the encirclement around the fortified complex remained intact. General Gilles wanted to discover the enemy's positions and prepare for the next phase of Operation Castor, which was to receive the troops withdrawing from Lai Chau. Knowing they could not possibly withstand the Viet Minh's 308th and 316th Divisions, the withdrawal from Lai Chau was codenamed Operation Pollux. The risk was that the Vietnamese divisions could intercept the withdrawal from Lai Chau to Dien Bien Phu. 2. Mitigate this danger, Lieutenant Colonel André Trancart, commander of the Northwest Combat Group, received instructions to divide the troops stationed in Lai Chau into 3 groups for withdrawal. The third phase of the operation turned into a chaotic retreat. The People's Army of Vietnam arrived in Lai Chau earlier than the French had anticipated, and the French rearguard was fiercely pursued by the main force of the 316th Division. The poorly equipped Thai soldiers, usually only used for sabotage commandos and unfamiliar with regular combat, were utterly defeated. 38 groups of Thai soldiers fled barefoot, without food or ammunition. On the morning of December 10, 1953, these 200 Thai soldiers, commanded by Sergeant Blank, were surrounded in Muong Thanh, a small village 18 kilometers from Dien Bien Phu, on the pavy road from Dien Bien Phu to Lai Chau, and were completely annihilated after 36 hours of resistance. The Foreign Legion Parachute Battalion, arriving to provide reinforcements, was ambushed. Vietnamese troops engaged in close-quarters combat with bayonets and grenades, causing B-26 Invader bombers, arriving to provide bombing support, to bomb both French and Viet Minh forces. Company 2 of the Foreign Legion Parachute Battalion suffered the heaviest casualties in the operation, 11 killed, approximately 30 wounded or captured. Ngày mai